Okay, marhaba kulkum. So good to see everyone. Um, Let me get my notes here very quickly. Here we are. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone to this DC Arabic Teachers Council workshop on teaching Arabo-Islamic primary texts in the high school and college classrooms with Dr. Hina Azam of the University of Texas at Austin. So glad to have you, Dr. Azam. I'm Mimi Kirk with the Institute for Middle East Studies at George Washington University. And IMUS at GW hosts the DC Arabic Teachers Council, which is an initiative generously funded by Qatar Foundation International. And we're just going to make a couple of quick announcements and introduce our speaker, and we'll get started. So first, for those who are attending today's session, there's an opportunity to participate in an upcoming curriculum development session. So my colleague, Teresa Hale, who I see is here with us, is going to give us a little more information. So Teresa.
Hi, thanks, Mimi. Hi, everyone. I'm uh, the outreach manager at IMES. And I organize a follow-up activity to these ATC workshops where teachers can work together to write and create curriculum materials based on the topic of the webinar. So we are going to be hosting a workshop based on this session on February 22nd. So if you are interested, please complete the form that I'm going to put in the chat. Just a short form with your name, information, and if you have any experience writing curriculum. And I will contact you with more details. But we've had several of these and they've been really successful. And we publish the lesson plans on our website and share them with the network. So it's a great way to get a little more experience and to network with other Arabic educators. So please let me know if you have any questions at all. I will put my email in the chat as well.
Hey, thanks, Teresa. And we should mention as well, there's an honorarium that goes with that. So that's kind of
Yes.
a perk of doing the work.
Yeah,
So
forgot to mention the most important part.
yeah.
It is not the most important part.
Yeah, that's one of the things to know about it. So okay, thanks so much, Teresa. And then just another quick announcement from me. As always, I will send you all a very brief survey, just 3 questions after today's workshop. And always so grateful if you would fill that out. It just helps us plan future sessions, keeps us accountable. So thanks for that. Okay. All right. And let me introduce our speaker, who, again, we're so lucky to have. Thank you so much, Dr. Hina, for being with us. Dr. Hina Azam is Associate Professor of Islamic Studies in the Department of Middle Eastern Studies at UT Austin, where she also serves as graduate advisor for the master's program in the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. Her research interests are in women and gender in Islam, Islamic law, Quranic ethics, and Muslim American literature. Okay, Dr. Azam, you have the floor. Welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining today. If you feel like turning your camera on, it's always nice to see your faces, but I understand if you can't. I'm just so delighted to have gotten this invitation. I have been teaching sort of grammar courses at UT, Arabic grammar courses at UT for a long time, and graduate seminars sometimes, and text reading courses and so forth. So although my experience has not been in the like K through 12 or like high school sort of age group, I think the material that I am presenting here today will be useful, and that's the reason why we titled it the way that we did. And as Mimi probably informed you all before we started, or even before this session, the goal of my presentation is to sort of take us off the beaten path a little bit and introduce Islamic primary texts in a way that is actually useful in the Arabic learning context. Um, so she has distributed a packet that I put together, but I will, kind of walk you through it because I am not sure. How many of you actually got a chance to look at the packet? You can do your little hand, the electronic hand signal if you did, or you can raise your actual hand if you did, or you can smile at me and give me the thumbs up. Okay, Lamia did. Okay, so maybe only like one person. So good. So we'll take some time to walk through that. So, you know, I I guess the starting point is, um, for me, is the benefit of actually exposing students to primary texts. I think that students, and this is, goes for me too, when I was a student and still is, when you are able to read actual primary texts, it's very exciting rather than reading something that's just in a textbook and you know that, okay, it's been put together for you as a learner, right? Whether it's newspaper articles, whether it's, literature, whatever it is, it's always exciting, I think, for students to feel like they're actually being exposed to something that's not written for learners of the language, but for colleagues or interlocutors of various sorts. And I think it also helps to build confidence for students. Hey, I can actually read this. This is really cool. So there's a lot of benefits for that. And when it comes to Islamic texts in Arabic, religious texts, I think the go-to is typically the Quran or prophetic hadiths. Would you say that's kind of where, what one would think of? Um, okay, so um, I think that that's where people would go. They would think of, let's read some Quran, or let's read some hadiths from Bukhari or something like that, or I don't know, Islamic law texts or something like that. The difficulty with the Quran and the hadiths, which I think are the first places where people would go, is that they're linguistically very complex, linguistically and stylistically very complex, and they are also substantively difficult to get at. You know, um, Reading a passage from the Quran is not only difficult because the language is difficult, but also because the world that produced that text is so remote from contemporary life. And so, in order to utilize the Quran or hadiths, um, the instructor has to do so much to even prepare the students that I think it becomes almost insurmountable. And so, you know, what I'm trying to do today is introduce you all to a different type of text that is an Arabo-Islamic primary text, but something that's actually much more accessible, um, and can be utilized easily. So the text that I chose is kind of what we can think of as sort of it's like a it fits into the genre of advice literature, um, and it is a work by Qadi al-Quḍā'ī, called Musnad al-Shihāb, and this is a very widely read, curated collection of hadiths. So students are being exposed to prophetic hadiths, but in a way that is really much more accessible, because of the curation of the author or the collector. Um, it This means that the instructor does not actually have to do any of the curation. Um, the hadiths are exceptionally short. If you have ever read hadith texts, they are typically very long, and also they have long chains of transmission, which again makes it difficult to utilize. The nice thing about the hadiths in this particular collection is that they are stripped of their chains of transmission and they're really short. They're like 4 words long, right? So they're very, very short. And the text that I have provided for you that is that I can and I can show you the original edition as well, is fully vocalized, right? So that is also really helpful. It's helpful for you as an instructor. It's also helpful for the students to be able to do any amount of self-study. The other thing that makes this text really great is that it has been well translated. So the work, the translation of the work is Light of the Heavens. I don't know, or Light in the Heavens. I don't know how many of you have seen this text. It's a slim volume. It does not include the entirety of the original Arabic, so it is an abridged version, but it's easy to find. It's an academic translation by Tahira Qutbuddin, by New York University Press. So you know that it's a good edition. It is solid. And the hadiths are numbered. So you can sort of see that there's numbering. Now, the numbering doesn't actually match up with the Arabic numbering, so it does take a little bit of finagling, but the packet that I've put together provides both numbering. So this also makes the text very good as a teaching text for you, because you can access the Arabic and you can also access a good translation, if you feel that you need it. So the name of the book that we're talking about, so this one is Light in the Heavens, and the original is called Musnad al-Shihāb. And so I will show you actually I will share a screen. In fact, I have a hold a second. I have an image of the actual text. Let me find it. Hold it one second. Okay. Okay, so here is the original, right? Here's Musnad al-Shihāb. It comes in 2 volumes. This is volume 1. You can see each volume is 500 pages, so it's very long. So this is not something that, you can't go through the entire thing, but it's a very nice edition. It's clear and you can read it easily. And I got this from like either the UT library or from Internet Archive. I don't exactly recall right now. So that's this text, and then I can show you an image of, oh, I don't have an image immediately available right now of the English translation, but I just held it up for you. Okay, so the work itself is by Muḥammad ibn Salāma al-Quḍā'ī. He lived in the 11th century CE or the 5th century Hijri. He was a Qadi, he was a preacher, he was a historian during the Fatimid period in North Africa. He was Shafi, if that means anything to anybody or if that's relevant. And he was really well known for his hadith knowledge. And so what I have done is created a packet for you all that includes 14 of his hadiths that are fully vocalized, along with Qutbuddin's translations. In some cases, I've sort of modified the translation a little bit. And then I've included 2 additional hadiths with the complete chains of transmission. And this would allow you to put together, lesson plans where you can show students what these mutun look like, but then also what the isnads look like. So I will share with you the packet that that Mimi shared with all of you. So hopefully you can see this. I can make it a little bit larger. Is this clear for everyone? Can give me a thumbs up. Okay. I'm actually gonna try to make it so I can see more of you. Okay, great. And all the information that I just gave you is up on the first page. So when you open the packet, you'll be able to read all of the basic information that I just gave you. So what I've included in the packet is, as I said, just 14, right? I selected 14 of the hadiths. And again, you'll see that there's no chain of transmission. There's no isnad for any of these because that gets very long. It's just what we call the metin, which is just the saying itself. And you can see how short they are, right? As-salam qabla al-kalam. I mean, you can't get shorter than that. That's really short, very accessible for students. And what I really like about this content is that it also is meaningful and beneficial in a modern context, right? It's not like you're reading about, how to exchange camels for, you know, grains of wheat or something like that, which would be completely inaccessible, or it's not some, point of fiqh about, I don't know, how to divide up shares in a well or something like that, right? Which students today would not be able to really resonate with. Um, these are very general ethical principles, right? Say greetings before conversing. Half of learning is asking good questions, right? These are great little sayings that, and I thought they were actually particularly beneficial in an academic context, like honor the book by reading it in full, right? Um, you can use these even, you can have students memorize them and then recite them because so much of learning is about getting the language on your tongue. So I just think these are really great. So there's 2 pages of these. Now you'll notice that I've provided under each one the translation. This is taken, if you see quotation marks, it's taken from Qutbuddin's translation. If you don't see quotation marks, it's because I modified it somehow. And mostly I stuck with her translation. So I guess did stick with her translations. And then I've also included the citation for where the hadith would be found in the Arabic edition, volume 1, page 55, or where you would find it in her translation. It's number 1.24 on page 6, right? So you can really track, if you want to sort of have the two texts side by side, you can do that really easily the way that I've presented it. So you'll see 2 pages of these, which I think is honestly enough for a unit that you would be doing on this kind of material. Like, obviously, you can dig up more if you wanted to. And then after I've included just the hadiths or the mutun, I've included the full text. So this allows a student to see what the text looks like in al-Quḍā'ī's work, right? So, I mean, for example, this first one, right? Believers are mirrors for one another. Al-mu'minu mir'at al-mu'min. That is, I just clipped this little part here up on top. But if you were to look at his actual text, you would see the 2 chains of transmission that he includes. And then you would see the footnote of the editor, which gives more information about the hadith and its transmission chains. And I've done that for a second one. I've given full text for a second one as well. And so this would allow you to give students at older age levels, older grade levels, in the college classroom, for example, if you're teaching a course that has anything to do with Islamic studies or, pre-modern literature genres or something like that, it would allow you to give students a taste of what these texts look like, how they worked, how they functioned. And then at the end of my document, what I've done is for each of the hadiths, I've given some ideas for how you could utilize them in your classroom. So for example, I mean, I know you can figure this all stuff out all by yours, like you didn't need me to put this in here, but sometimes, you're busy, you're running, you don't have time, you have like 5 minutes to prepare for class. Okay, it's nice if someone does the work for you. So for example, hadith number 21, right over here, half of learning is asking good questions. حسن سؤال نصف العلم. So if you look to here, what I've done is just said, well, you can talk about the structure of the sentence. You can talk about idafa construction. You can talk about the way the hamza takes its seat on different vowels. You can talk about different masdar types, right? So I've kind of done this for each of the hadiths so that you can sort of have a starting point for how you would want to use it in the classroom. And then I think some of you asked about the bibliographic information. Here's the bibliographic information for both the Arabic and the translation. And so, Mimi, I believe, or you all have this text, right? This packet, right? You all have it in front of you or have access to it presently, hopefully.
Should I put it in the chat? I think I can, would that be helpful to put the file in the chat?
Yes,
Are you all there? Is anyone here?
yeah, I would like to see it in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, I think yes, there we go. So you can all access it easily from the chat. And it was in the email too. Yeah, thank you, May.
Great, great. Yeah, so you can all open it up. So I guess, did you put it like in a box or something, Mimi, where people can access it online?
So for those who had uh, registered for the workshop, I sent it to like everybody,
You just attached it over there.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's attached in an email and then it's here with us now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what I thought we could do is, again, because I realized that maybe most of you didn't have chance to kind of really absorb it. I would give everybody just a little bit of time, and maybe break you into two groups. And Mimi and I can sort of like not be in a group or something, or you can be in a group and we could like float around or something like that. I can sort of wait it out. And give you guys maybe 10 minutes to just 10, 12 minutes, just like walk through or look through the text and think about, how you might utilize it, and so forth. And then we can regroup in large group and go from there. So does that sound like a good idea?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So now that we're all together, of course, I was in my group, but maybe we can just e- each person can just share one observation that they made about this collection and how it could be utilized culturally, grammatically, linguistically, aesthetically, whatever you like. So, who would like to start?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Naha.
I mean, I loved all the ideas that were thrashed out were fabulous, and some had to do with language, and some had to do with culture. I would focus because this is something I grapple with as a teacher of Arabic at the university level, at any level. We are teaching a particular language that's misunderstood. It's not like teaching French. So I find unconsciously I'm always veering towards comparisons. So cultural comparisons is like, oh, let's look at what the hadith says. Does this resonate with anything similar in your culture? A piece of poetry, something you use at home, some saying your grandmother says or whatever. So I would push students to try to get to the content, even though I focus on language in my classes very much. But I think it's important to focus on the content, especially that we're introducing an Islamic text, which
Right.
for some might cause wariness, like, oh, are they proselytizing or something? But here is a text that's amenable to universalization, the content of it. So I would push students to try to look for links between this hadith, the content, and what's familiar to them. And then leave the rest to take its course, that, oh, maybe the lesson learned is, oh, this is not a scary text. This is a universal sort of interesting text.
Yeah, and just to comment on that before we go to the next person, that was another in our discussion group, in our breakout room, that the issue of cultural presentation also did come up. But you're pointing to something very, very important, that Islam is really a maligned religion in American culture. So, so there's two angles, right? One is to introduce, and Arab culture is also maligned and misunderstood, Middle Eastern culture. Like there's a lot of xenophobia, there's a lot of things that we're dealing with our students. And so, to show that there are positive, relatable, ethical principles, I think is like a very important aspect of at least what I was trying to collect here for y'all. But yes, enough of me. Let's hear the next person's. Yeah, go ahead, Khalil.
Marhaba, everyone. I have two things to share with the group. The first one, like a while ago when I was talking about culture, I was checking myself not to ignore Christian minorities in the Arab world who are Arabic speakers.
Yeah.
That teaching hadith should not exclude those native speakers of Arabic. But at the opposite, it can be a source of richness, because also Christian texts in spirit are similar, perhaps to the same, like they reiterate the same principles, moral principles. So that's one thing. So I was very careful not to say just Arabic and Islamic culture, but we should also recognize Christian communities within the Arab world. And I don't know how we reconcile that by choosing only Islamic texts, not Christian texts.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a resource, right? So you could have a unit on religions in the Middle East or religions in the Arab world, and one could say, well, the Bible is also available in Arabic. So one could say, okay, we'll take some texts that are from the Old Testament that are important to Arab Jews. There actually are Arab Jews.
Yeah.
And one can then also take some sections from the New Testament that are, relevant to Arab Christians. One can take then section like this. So I was just providing sort of like a component that would be useful because it's my area of focus, but one could certainly come up with a really wonderful lesson plan, I think, of, one could include some Druze texts as well. One could include some Baha'i texts as well. One could include some, and come up with a really, I think, rich, multifaceted unit on, religion in the Arab world. That would be just so interesting.
And then my second point goes to the idea of integrating music, or not music in the sense, but the alliterations and the qafiyah and all the even the syllables and the order of the syllables in Arabic, and how
the meters.
Yeah, and how powerful that is in the language. I teach mostly beginner level students, so we start with the alif ba, with the alphabet, but I nag my students so often about giving enough time for the long vowels and pronouncing them well, because they tend to carry the stress. And I keep giving them the metaphor of musical notes. If you want to come up with the right tune, you have to respect the notes. Otherwise, you'll come up with something different. So I think these also these sayings, and even in their very short forms, are very, very musical in nature. And I think it's the way Arabic articulates the world, and it's a good aspect to point to the students as well. Also, one thing, a previous workshop was about integrating Arabic music in the classroom. So there could be also organic links to that previous workshop in a sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Yes.
Hanan,
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I would like to thank you so much for what you put together. Like, it's very helpful. And I don't work with higher education institutes. I work with K through 12. So I was thinking that we can use what you presented in middle school even
Yeah.
for students who are learning Arabic. And I love that the short sentences that you have, and the first hadith about the asking questions is about the understanding. And we talk about the culture, the Arab, like they think that Muslims are not prohibited of asking questions. But here the hadith is showing that we should, and it's encouraged to ask questions and open your mind to ideas. We shared a lot in our session, in our group, and I would like to thank Muna. She presented the lesson for us, the packet. Thank you, Muna. And thank you so much, Dr. Azam. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you, Hanan. How about Samar? Would you like to share a thought?
Yes, I'm here. Actually, I was not the main person that shared the most beneficial point. It was the أستاذة sorry Noha no sorry Maha. We shared some ideas or how we can represent these hadith. And I think they are they can provide us it was their ideas. So Maha, please can you say it?
I'm sorry, again?
Maha, please.
Oh,
You can represent the idea that you already shared before.
sure.
It was yours and
But it's good to hear from you too, somebody. It doesn't have, you can share anything you like whenever you feel like.
okay. I like the idea that Mr. Khalil mentioned before. I developed at one of my courses at the AUC. I developed a culture-based curriculum that focused on represent and provide a student with the Egyptian culture through movies, through songs, and TV shows that how they can learn dialects, Egyptian dialect and culture through comparison. So I start with a comparison or not a comparison. My intention to make like a kind of compatibility between the Islamic culture and the Christian one in marriage, for example. What are the differences between Islam and the Christians? How they get married? What are the procedures? Something like that.
Yeah.
And for our task about the hadith, I like the idea that Maha and Ustaza, sorry, I didn't recognize your name, that she mentioned that we focus on also the comparison between the English and Arabic in the syntax, and also the how how we can focus on the harakat, how it can change the meaning, something like that. That's all that I can provide.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, shall I go ahead?
Yes, please.
First of all, thank you so much. This is very insightful, and I think I like most is providing a way where we can introduce the structure and the forms contextualized. So it's like not having a lesson about jumla ismiya and different sentences. When you have these types of lessons, grammar lessons, where you have decontextualized sentences and separate sentences. But in this way, we're having like one hadith, and we focus first on the meaning, and we talk about the context and what it means, and then from the hadith we get the structures and the forms, and this is, I think, so brilliant.
It is.
And
I mean, I have to say, I cannot take the credit for the editors and the translators. I just, I found the things and I pieced them together because, I'm so grateful to the editor of the Arabic text who actually
yeah,
took the time to vowelize it because, as you know, most primary texts, medieval texts, are not
yeah.
vocalized. I was in shock because the only vocalized texts I ever see are either Quran, maybe or maybe Sha'ar, Like I don't see usually, the fiqh texts that I read, they're never vocalized. So I was like, wow, this is like a jewel I found, a vocalized text and it's also been translated. So I can't take credit for that, but Jazakallah for your generosity.
And the other thing is, they're all universal. So every hadith is just universal, regardless of religion, nationality, culture. They're universal principles or universal teachings also. So they're applicable to anyone and any age as well. Most of them. Some of them would be like, I was saying, some of them would not be the best for like middle school, like the one about, I mentioned this in the breakout room, the one about كثرة الضحك تميت القلب. Maybe that would be a little bit difficult to explain to middle school, for example, because children would like to laugh, so let them laugh until they grow up and face the problems. But other than that, I really liked about the thing about the meaning, the structure, the universality. It's amazing. And also, as Ustadha Hanan mentioned, the focus on jumla ismiya, that doesn't have a verb, because like in English language, French, there's always a verb in a sentence. But in jumla ismiya, we can have a full, complete, meaningful sentence without a verb. This is something that's not in English, so this is a distinction that I liked also.
And I think another sort of interesting little side issue that could also be brought up in terms of intercultural understanding is that the lack of the verb in an equational sentence is something that we see then when non-native speakers of English they come to the US, they start speaking English, right? So when you hear somebody who is an Arabic speaker, is their primary language, mother tongue, and they may leave out the is when they're speaking in English in the beginning, right? They may say, they may just leave it out, So my mother tongue is Urdu. And so there are certain things that Urdu speakers of English always do, or very commonly do, because in Urdu we do not have any articles. There's no the. And so, for example, when, you know, you instead of saying, the store is closed, an Urdu speaker of English would say store is closed. They just leave out the, right? So I think, when when you're teaching your students about and do sort of like a syntactical comparison, then it's a way to slip in a form of intercultural sensitivity and understanding towards, immigrants who come to the US and are learning English and may carry over some of the syntactical features of their mother tongue into English, so it's kind of an interesting point as well.
Yeah, one other thing also, the last part about the full text, I find really interesting when we're referring to about the isnad, getting them introduced to uh, how we uh, how we mention Prophet Muhammad. I mean, using not mention or honoring Prophet Muhammad by
Sallallahu alayhi wa
or alayhi salatu wasalam. The terms used like rawa, akhbara,
Right.
and these are really also, I mean, very insightful for me.
Yeah, they're super interesting, and I mean, I realize that some of these things may not be entirely understandable to if one has not dealt with these texts. For example, if you look at the first one, right, أخبرنا Abu Muhammad Abdurrahman ibn Umar at-Tujibi, and then you see thana.
Mhm.
So that thana is a short for haddathana, right?
Yes.
So one has to also actually become familiar with the genre
Yeah.
and that. So I didn't explain those things. I do apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay, but they are really insightful. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention, and then I forgot right now.
It's okay. How about Mimi? I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts as well.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I was saying to Hanan and Maha, and I think Samar, we were in a group together that I learned a lot from their conversation. And I think they've talked about pretty much all we spoke about. But one thing and I was so impressed because I felt that they came up with so many ideas on how to use the text and then expand a lesson, so we talked about you could look into, and I would like to do this. Maybe I will, is to look into some research on the particular hadiths, like where and the oral tradition as part of how they came about. And anyway, so that was one thing I think that we've been talking about a little bit here, but that struck me. I took some notes. Yeah. I mean, Hannah, when we first talked about doing this workshop, I love the just the sayings. They're so charming too. So I would just mention that I think they're a pleasure to read and that, and some are more difficult than others to understand, of course, because they're not always straightforward, but that's part of the kind of fun of trying to translate them, if you didn't have the translation right in front of you, but just to say, okay, what is this? What is the meaning? Anyway,
Yeah.
just a couple
Yeah.
of thoughts, but yeah.
I mean, I have to say, I found them so inspiring. When I first encountered this collection, especially, well, I first encountered the collection through the English, and then I went back to the Arabic. But when I first encountered it, my God, I was so delighted by it. I bought it for my children. It's sort of my standard gift now. I give it to everybody. Here, this is because you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be Muslim. These are just uh, really something so simple as like, again, honor the book by reading it in full, right? So many people just they read just a little bit of a news article, they read just a little bit of something, and then they take it out of context, and it's a form of, you're not actually giving value to the knowledge or the idea or the presentation if you don't take the time to absorb it. So it's really great. So I want to make sure everyone who wanted to share had a chance to share. Teresa or May, is there anything that you would like to share? I know you did say something, May, in our small group, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for this beautiful selection of texts. They are really inspiring. And the idea just came to me. I think a story is very important because I started using that in my class as a piloting study. And I usually take a text from the book, but also I'm using a new technology that can create a story for it. Non-native speaker is very hard for them to understand it unless it is explained maybe in a different way. So I think storytelling can help, and also more scaffolding before coming to give them these short hadiths will help them, because I have a lot of experience teaching non-native speakers, and I know sometimes they cannot read the text without understanding the background of it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Teresa or Lamia, did you want to share your thoughts about anything, or how this could be, how you could expand it, work with it?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. We discussed in our group how concise the Arabic language is compared to the English translation. We also discussed the importance of music especially in the Fusha Arabic texts. And we also discussed how important it is to teach grammar indirectly through inference, because majority of people don't like to learn nahwu or grammar, right?
Right.
So one fun way is to actually help students deduce or infer certain grammatical rules from the text itself. And to tie to what Khalil mentioned and the others, the cultural aspect is to help students also infer rather than telling them the religion, whether it's Islam, Christianity, or especially Islam. It's not a religion of violence. It actually a religion of tolerance and kindness. So help the students through reading these short hadith infer that the principles that Islam calls for are similar to those, fundamental to any religion, which is treat people kindly and with tolerance and all these positive principles. Now, based on what you all were talking about now, if it's any consolation to Hina or anybody who's been, trying to sort of like drop connectors like prepositions and verbs and stuff based on their mother tongue, if it's any consolation, if you notice the English language nowadays, contemporary language, especially social media jargon, you will notice that a lot of the younger generation are dropping prepositions, conjunctions, even verbs from their talk, right? So one example comes to mind is like, you cool, right? It's no longer you are cool, you cool, yeah? You close. Yeah. So stuff like that is just an interesting fact to show students that the trend in English is moving towards what Arabic has been doing all along with, which is having, فاعل مستتر, ضمير مستتر, like hidden pronouns or hidden subjects and stuff like that. So it will be an interesting way of comparing contemporary English with, more formal Arabic.
Yeah, super interesting. Thank you. Okay, Teresa, you're last. Do you want to share us a thought?
I don't think I have anything like super original to add, but yeah, I just wanted to say as a non-Arabic speaker who's, attending so I can help assist with the curriculum workshop in a few weeks. I'm really, surprised by how, these kind of ancient primary texts, seem to, relate to like modern life. So I think that's really interesting. And I think that makes it a really rich text for students, and it can bring to life some of these ancient texts. So I think it was really interesting to see that. I think it would be something that students could easily connect to and find connections in their everyday lives.
Yeah, and I think that point is really a good point for, again, looking at, if we think of how one can start with this text and then push it into broader conversations. Of course, we can talk about ethics, we can talk about intercultural relations and so forth. We can also use a text like this as a starting point to talk about history, because very often, we think of like people back then. People back then, they weren't as smart as people now. People back then weren't as humane as people are. People back then, it's all sorts of ideas about history, right? And yes, the past is a foreign country. I do believe that. But also I believe that the past is not even past. So, there are ways in which human beings have had similar thoughts and feelings across the centuries. And so it's very strangely, it's surprising, it is refreshing, and it's inspiring to read a text of sayings from 1400 years ago from a completely different culture. And to feel like, oh, I can get something out of this, and that it could actually open students' minds to the study of history more broadly, the reading of literature of other cultures and other countries and other times, in a very sort of gentle, small way. So. Well, I'm done with my presentation, and I will let Mimi go ahead and close out in any way that she would like. I can stay on for a little bit after the official closing, maybe 5-10 minutes. But I thank you all so much for your time and your engagement, and really, I gained a lot of insights too from listening to how you think that this collection would be interesting. So, yes, Maha.
Um, one thing also I like to point out, I like very much the how you mentioned the noticing of the Hamza, the seating of the Hamza, because sometimes it's just disregarded by some teachers, and sometimes some of us even do not see the Hamza as a letter, but the Hamza has functions. So I like how you mentioned this in the forms and the structure.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's very interesting because the Hamza, the Hamza has a very interesting history in Arabic orthography. If you look at the very earliest Arabic inscriptions, there the Alif, the Hamza, and the Ya all came later. And so, you know, it was meant to solve a problem. It was meant to solve the development of the letter was, and the rules of its orthography were meant to handle, or were meant to solve the problem of how to depict, you know, a phoneme, how to depict a sound in writing, so it is a very, very interesting thing. I didn't bring it up over here, but I love showing my students how the word salat and zakat are spelled in the Quran, because they are spelled with wow.
Wow, yes. Mhm.
And so that really, the students are like, wait, what? Is it salwa? No, it's not salwa. It would look like salwa, but it's not salwa, right? So it's a very cool opportunity to show how the spoken language is ancient, but the written language came a little bit later and had to develop. So yeah. Okay, Mimi, go. I'll turn the table over to you.
Yeah, thanks. That was fascinating. I didn't know that about the Aleph, Wow, and Hamza, right? Yeah. Um, well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I think it was really interesting, and then it was also nice to have those breakout rooms where we got to talk a little bit and small groups and then share. So Hannah, this was beautifully done. Thank you again. I think we can, I want to just say if there are any last comments or questions, please, do so. We can wait a beat before we sign off, but otherwise, I will be in touch with the group. I'll send you the recording. And I think I'll redistribute the packet as well, just to make sure you all have it. Thank you again.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you. Very kind of you.
Thank you.
Yatikum al-afi. Thanks.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Ustadha Hanan. I appreciated your comments.
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Wassalam. Maybe I was thinking of I'm going to be in DC in Maryland